welcome to On the Bubble podcast episode 47. I'm your host, Subasa J. Ueda, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today we're going to be talking about the Canadian Nationals 2023 and how we did. And one more thing, we have a one-year anniversary that came up a couple months ago at this point. But we also hit 500 subs, so we'll do a little segment on that. I don't know how to say anything more. How would you describe this?
Yeah, just we kind of came up on our 1 year anniversary a couple weeks ago, I think, and we weren't sure what to do. And we decided to just kind of do a mini segment this week. And we wanted to thank everybody for subscribing to our channel. We recently hit 500 subs, so that's really exciting. And it's nice to see that support. And I also wanted to thank everyone who told us that they watch that they listened to the podcast or that they watched some of our content on the channel. We had quite a bit of this, a little bit in Vegas and a bunch of this at Canadian Nationals, which we'll be talking about later in the pod. I don't know about you, Jay, but when I hear this, it means so much to me. Like I know that we have like numbers on our videos and or on Spotify and it says that people are listening, but it always just kind of hits a little bit different when somebody says, "Oh, I really like your podcast. I appreciate it." And like a lot of people said that it helped them with their nationals drafts, which was just feels good. It's nice to hear.
Yeah, no, it feels great. The bigger thing is like Yuki, your face is like a little bit more known, so like people know who you are, and I'm more of a nobody, right? Like people just don't know my face. Like I'm not really on social media with my face, or like people don't know what I look like a lot, right?
Mhm.
So at CanNats, when somebody came and said, "Are you Jay?" and I was just like, "How did you know that was me?" Like I was more surprised that they recognized either through my voice or I guess my interactions with you that they recognized that this was me.
Yeah, that's awesome. It also kind of reminds me of a funny story that we heard last night at Armory that Eric Keelback, who joined us on the podcast, I forget the episode number, but it was our Bolton episode. He said that he was there at CanNats, just like talking to somebody, wasn't even with me or Jay. And the person's just like, "Have you been on a podcast?" And he's like, "Not really. I guessed it on one." And he's like, "Are you the Bolton guy from On the Bobble?" And he's just like, "How did you know this?" Just like complete called shot off the voice. So yeah, it's pretty cool that people can just like recognize the voice of somebody and then it like sticks out to them. And I know that kind of like that felt good for him and it feels good for us. And I think all the content creators that I've talked to kind of say the same thing, that it's just nice to have that interaction. And we really appreciate it when you come up and say that, because we're doing this to try and help people get better. And it's nice to hear that people feel like they're getting better.
Yeah, or even just consuming the content in general. Like the not the weird feeling, but definitely a feeling that I get would be like if make the content but no one's actually listening or using it, it kind of feels bad. If but then when somebody actually comes up and says that they actually listen, happens a lot in locals, like at least in our area, where most of them know about our podcast because obviously we do it and we do talk about it there too, and they just say, "Oh, like I listened to your last week's episode." Kind of feels great. Like, man, feels like it was worth it to make that episode or make this episode.
Yeah, if you're putting, it takes time and effort to put out the episode. It's just nice to hear that people are listening and making use of it, and it makes it feel worthwhile. So thank you for letting us know. And I'm sure that any of the other podcasters or content creators that you go up and talk to or you let them know, I'm sure that they appreciate it just as much as we do. It means a lot. So, kind of carrying on here for our 1 year anniversary, we're going to do just like a little mini segment. We're not going to devote the whole episode to it or anything. But the first one that I wanted to talk about is the origin of our podcast name. Why are we called On the Bobble? I know that I've heard like people don't really know. Like I feel like we kind of intended it as like a bit of a joke and people don't really like get the name. So I thought it might be fun to talk about where the name came from.
Sure, let's explain the name a bit first. So, on the bubble, it's come from the phrase "on the bubble." That's a very common phrase used in both like poker, card games. It's when there is a cut to top eight, when you come ninth through breakers, that typically means that you were on the bubble and you didn't make the bubble. So you bubbled out of top eight. And that's where that phrase "on the bubble" comes from. This is a play on words with the word bauble, which is a everyone knows if you play a lot of limited, Cracked Bauble. And that was the only card in Flesh and Blood that was a direct reference to like limited Flesh and Blood. There's like no other card in the game that's like, oh, this is specifically made for limited. And the Cracked Bauble was that, so I really wanted to put Bauble or Cracked Bauble in the name of the podcast. So I was just asking a lot of my friends, like, how do we put Bauble in a name of a podcast and keep it somewhat relevant? A bunch of my poker friends actually was like, why not call it On the Bauble? And I was like, wow, that actually sounds kind of good.
Yeah, and then Jay pitched the name to me, and I was a fan, and we never really looked back. So that's kind of the origin of our podcast name for those of you that might be interested in that.
Oh, another thing, our logos, there's a funny story about the logo. So I was originally going to like pay somebody on like, I forgot the platform where you can hire artists and stuff. Sorry,
I
that's
can't
the
think of it either, but I know the one you're talking about. We were looking at them together, and I've forgotten what it's called entirely.
yeah. So I was originally going to hire somebody to like make the logo, and while I was looking at that, I was just like, well, I guess we can have like a placeholder logo, and then I just like slap one together in like 15 minutes, and that's still the logo that we're still using. So I guess that worked out.
Yeah, every once in a while, I do think about updating our logo and kind of, I don't know, just like sprucing up the channel a little bit, and then I get lazy. So, maybe it'll happen one day. Maybe it won't. Who knows?
Yeah, this is like, as a content creator, we're like not that deep into it because like obviously these channels, at least this podcast in particular, like we make zero money off of it, and it's more of like on our spare time we would edit and we would record and get these episodes out. And it's kind of interesting that we can actually get almost one episode a week out. It's honestly pat on the back for you, Yuki, and for myself as well, that we're actually getting out like a lot of episodes out in 1 year, like 47 episodes in 1 year. It's like kind of impressive.
Yeah, we've definitely like missed some weeks here and there, but overall, I think we do a pretty good job. And I also want to thank you, Jay. For anybody that doesn't know, Jay ends up doing pretty much all of the editing. I sometimes send him like links to stuff that we talk about and things like that. But and I often do a little bit more of the show notes. But big shout out to Jay for handling the editing of the podcast. I know it's a big job and it takes a lot of time.
It's not like I do like professionally, so it's not a I don't like treat it as like a professional job. So like I get lazy here and there, skip a few things. If there's clearly something that should have been edited out, that's in there. That's probably me skimming it over or something.
Fair enough. Yeah, our podcast is maybe not the most polished, but hopefully it is enjoyable nonetheless.
Yeah, hopefully it's good enough.
Yeah, hopefully it is good enough, and the main key points still shine through. Ready to go into our next topic for our anniversary?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
So on Twitter, it's kind of been trending that people have been posting their first sanctioned fab event, just like a screenshot of whatever event it was and how they did. I thought that that would be kind of a fun way to do our anniversary, is just talk about how Jay and I got into Flesh and Blood, and specifically like what our very, very first event was. Do you want to start, Jay, or should I?
Sure. Actually, Yuki, you start because you started before I did.
That's true. So I actually started in like the Crucible of War era. I bought First Ed Crucible of War from the store for like 130 Canadian dollars. I bought a couple boxes. I wish I bought more. I remember people selling cold foil Majestics for like 30 bucks from Crucible. And I was like, man, that's really cool. These cards seem great. I was like kind of thinking about getting a set of them, but I wasn't sure. For context, like before this, I played Magic the Gathering and I had gotten back into it as basically only a limited player. And I pretty much exclusively got product to play limited. that was it. So I'd like go to my pre-release, get packs, and use them to draft and get cheaper drafts. But I would never buy a box. So even the idea of like buying 3 boxes was like extravagant, and the idea of like getting these cold foils was kind of crazy to me. Looking back, of course, I wish I had done that, but that's sort of like the time frame that I got in. But I didn't start playing Armory events until a little bit later. So my first Armory event was actually for the Cavdine Armory, and this was in April 17th, 2021. It's just a couple weeks before the Monarch pre-release, and this was during the COVID lockdown, so it was all kind of online webcam. And I think that's part of the reason it took me a bit to kind of get into it. This was run by Infinity. We've kind of talked about that store a little bit, and Eric Lair, friend of the podcast, was TOing at the time and was sort of like a big part of getting this going. This was online Armory, 4 rounds. I ended up getting 2 wins, it looks like. So I ended up drawing my first round. I think I remember this. I was playing quite slow, and so was my opponent. There was a lot of like trying to figure out what our cards did. And I remember early on in Armory, like this was super common. We're all playing Blitz, and like every round, multiple people would be going to time. It was just like super, super common when like, because we were all starting out and we were all pretty new to the game. And then like there's also the added barrier of it being online. So drawing was like, I don't know if you had this experience, Jay. Maybe it was like it might have gotten less bad with Monarch because Monarch was more powerful, but this was like during like the defensive Ira meta. So some of the games could be like kind of long, and going to time was like surprisingly real.
I can believe that. Because like when I started, people were talking about that in Blitz IRL was the best deck or something, and that played like did it play 9 Flick Flacks? Oh no, 6 Flick Flacks.
Yeah, 6 Flick Flacks, Sync, and maybe
Fate.
Fate. It had Sigil of Solace as well. I don't remember if it had Fate.
Yeah,
But
but
still,
and
that's a lot of D-Reacts.
all I remember is that deck played a lot of combo cards and not the actual like way to combo with them, but just because there were 3 block combo cards.
Yeah, and they just like killed you with their Kodachi value and Ira's +1 and a lot of like Kodachi for 1, CNC for 7 kind of stuff.
Oof, it
Um,
still sounds gross.
it's real good. I remember for this event, I was playing Azalea for the first like while. I was only playing Azalea, and it was quite a bit of fun. So I was happy to get the 2 wins and go 2-1-1 at my first ever Armory. I actually don't remember a lot of these people I played against very well. Like I vaguely remember them from the early days, but they haven't stuck around. But I do remember Ross. I played Ross in the last round, Ross Hilliam, and he's still one of our locals and somebody that still plays here and there. So
Yeah, I
cool
think he got a
by meeting them.
dog, and he stopped showing up to local armories recently. But yeah, he's still around. He still comes out once in a while.
So that was my first event. What was your first event, Jay?
Yeah, so my first event. So Yuki got me into this game, and if people's been listening to the pod, I'm like a true like value grinder. So if someone tells me that this is a value event to go to, we'll probably show up. And the event that she got me into was Infinity Skirmish. So at Infinity Card and Collectibles, the online skirmish in June 12 of 2021. I'm pretty sure you played this one too, right?
Yeah, this was Skirmish Season 2. I think I was on Chain for this, and I lended our friend Mateo a Prism deck, and then I think I gave you some cards for. Did you play Chain?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I played some budget chain deck. I think I did it. I only had one shadow puppetry on this deck. I didn't have Carrion Husk. I didn't have Skullcap. And so I remember very little about this event. From the rounds, the match record that I see on FabPCG, it says I won my first round, kind of insane. And then I lost the next 3 and got a bye on the last round, going 2-3. But the main thing I remember about this event is I was talking to Yuki, and I'm just like, wow, these legendary equipment pieces seems broken. I want to play with them. How do I buy it? And she goes, nobody has it. So I'm just like, what do I do? So I went to my local game store, which was Magic Stronghold. And then I was like, I guess I'll try my luck on their last 2 boxes of Arcane Rising at this time. and I'm just like, well, let's see if I open a skull cap for my deck, because that seemed like a very good upgrade for my deck. And I opened my first box, nothing. I think I opened a Command and Conquer. I was feeling sad because I already bought my Command and Conquer at this point, I think. Maybe I didn't have it. Either way, I opened a Command and Conquer and felt pretty sad and opened a Skull Cap. And then on the second box, I open a hit, but it's the wrong hit. I open Eye of a Fidelia, and I'm actually just like super disappointed that I opened this like harder to get card than the skull cap I needed for that weekend.
Yeah, I remember Jay just like complaining to me about how I opened I and I was just like, go away.
Yeah, it's like this problem of a competitive player. It's just like opening a super high rarity card doesn't mean anything if you can't like play with the lower rarity card that you need for your deck, and now you can't win the game. It's just like, man, like these collectible cards aren't useful, and there wasn't really like a market in Vancouver at the time where I can be like, I want to trade my eye for a skull cap, which I would have definitely done at that time because I really wanted a skull cap. But what? 2 years later, I'm really glad that I had the eye instead of the skull cap, because skull cap's like $60, maybe, like maybe $50 for the rainbow foil, and the eye is like what, 400.
Yeah, something like that. The reprint and then printing of Crown of Providence really hurt Skullcap a lot. So it's funny to look back at this. You know what the sick thing is, Jay? I've still never opened a Fabled in my life. Actually, that's not true. I opened a library once when we were doing draft prep and I didn't buy the pack, so I opened it for someone else.
That's so sick. I think I've opened a Plague Hive, I've opened the Eye, and I've opened a Blood of Drakai as well. So
You're so sick.
I've opened 3 Fabled so far, and I feel like you've opened more boosters than I have.
That's probably true. There was like a long time where I'd buy like a case ish of each set, sometimes a little bit more. And I've definitely opened like, if I count all my drafts, I don't know where I'm at. I've kind of stopped counting at some point. I'm probably like over 60 boxes worth of sealed product, and I've never opened a Fabled. So, it happens. Some people are just lucky. Meanwhile, we have like Eric Keel back at draft who's opened like, I don't know how many Fableds at draft. He's opened like 5 of them or something. Like he just like keeps opening libraries. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, the variants in these pack openings are kind of crazy. Well, that's just the nature of like randomness, right? It's like one guy can just keep on opening the highest rarity cards in like every other set.
Gambling.
Yeah, gambling's great.
So there you
Okay.
go. Those are kind of our first fab events. Neither of us did very well, as you'll notice. Vancouver was like kind of hard when we started out. We had Eric Lear playing here, and he had been playing with like all the people from Ontario, like Dante Delfico and all like the New Zealand players, and was just like way ahead of his time. Like I think he like started so early that he drafted um, Alpha WTR in person, and it's just like, okay, you're really good at this game compared to me right now.
Yeah, and then now Eric's was commentating Canadian Nationals.
Yeah, still a good player, but he's definitely taken a bit of a step back to focus more on content, which is cool. He does a great job over on Spark of Genius. All right, you want to move into our main topic? Start talking about Canadian Nationals.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I guess we can just start off with how we did. I came 24th in this event, and luckily enough, 9th to 24th got paid 225 US dollars. What place did you come in, Yuki?
I came in ninth at this event, and for the record, I wasn't on the bubble for this event. I lost 2 win-ins, and it was a clean cut. So everybody that got in was 9-3, and I was 8-4, losing my last 2 rounds to get my last 2 losses. So even though I was at ninth, and some people were like, "Oh, that's so unlucky," it wasn't unlucky. I just needed to win another round, and I didn't. But yeah, I came in ninth overall, pretty happy with that. But Slightly disappointed. It always hurts to lose those last two win and ends. I was hoping to get there, but I did not.
On the other hand, I'm kind of happy that I can say that I did just as well as Yuki because we got the same pricing. We both got 225 US dollars. And yeah, my last round was not for anything. I actually lost my last round of constructed, and then I was like, no, maybe I don't even get my $200. And then standings came up, and I'm like, whoa, I got exactly 24th on breakers? Insanity. Let's go. Ninth to 24th, all pays the same. I didn't even have to win all my games to get the same amount of money.
Yeah, I remember hearing Jay being very excited about being 24th when he looked at the standings at the end. It was pretty funny.
So I guess you said yourself already. You went 8-4. I went 7-5. So that's like I had a full match. Like one more. I gave up one more match than Yuki, and still got the same. So it's kind of sick. Like, do you think they should have made like an extra pay jump ladder somewhere?
I don't know. It's possible. I mean, it's easy for me to say yes because it would have benefited me, but like I mean, even that aside, I think there's like something to be said to it, but it's also a little bit awkward because it is 9th through 24th because often they do like top 16 and then top 32 is usually how they do it at like PTs and callings and stuff. So I don't know exactly what they could have done. I guess they could have done like 9th through 16th and then 17th through 24th, but that seems a little weird too. So I get why they did it that way, but it definitely was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's like it is nationals, so like the prize pool is not that big either. So
Mhm.
paying kind of deep was it benefited me for sure because I came on 24th. But I think it's like so then more people gets paid and more people wants to show up to the event maybe.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And the nice thing about this is for at least for us from Vancouver, and I imagine for most places in Canada, maybe not some of the more like remote and hard to get to places, the 225 US or about 300 Canadian pretty much covers your flight. So that's kind of nice that if you do reasonably well at nationals, at least your flight's paid for and like it just makes it easier to go to that event and feel okay about it.
Yeah, like my flight was $200 round trip, so this pricing actually paid for most of my hotel. And what actually happened was I ended up playing some sealed with one of my roommates, and we bought a box of Uprising, we played two sealeds, and we played for all the cards and $50 on the side. Ended up winning both the sealed pools, so that that plus the pricing from this Nats actually paid for my whole trip. So this whole trip was free for me. That was great.
Yeah, good weekend for Jay, and that's how you do the that's kind of the key to value grinding, as Jay puts it. You just gotta get the events to more or less break even, and then you can keep going to the next event and the next event, and if nothing else, you got some good experiences out of it.
Oh, and the Prism, the we got a cool foil adult Prism, Awakener Soul. I think it's worth. I think it's called. I was
Yeah,
able to sell that card for like $140. So, plus on that part. So made a little bit of money for the weekend.
that's true. I kind of forgot about that card. I still have mine. I just slipped my mind that we had it. Okay, so what did you think about Canadian Nationals overall as an event, like from the hall, the logistics, all of that kind of stuff?
I think this one was the most. It felt the most like a good event compared to the last two Cannats that we had. It did feel it was a little bit slow for getting the drafts going on day one, but I think just like the venue itself was nice and clean. It was easy to get to, and it felt more or less organized.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It just felt like the venue just like felt nicer. Some of the other ones felt like a little dingy or something. Whereas this was just in a hotel in a Hilton, so it wasn't like super fancy or anything, but it was just nice. It worked. It was pretty good. The coverage was really well done. They got Mansant with Savage Feats to do coverage. we had coverage last year as well, but the production was not nearly what this production is, and I think that they did a really good job, which always kind of adds something to it. And overall, it seemed like the event ran pretty well. They had like some side events as well. Nothing as big as US Nats, of course, like none of the Nats do, but we had a PTI event on the Sunday. There was like, what was it? Super Armory Shapeshifter Sealed on Friday. There was just like a bunch of different side events that people were playing in, which was kind of cool. It just adds to like a nice weekend experience. So I thought that Red Riot Games did an awesome job. And yeah, the one critique would be our draft round, especially the second draft, took quite a while to get going. But I believe they had a problem with Gem where the sixth round results like kind of got lost, or they had to manually enter them before they could go to the next round. And so that's like why there was like a big hiccup and delay. I think it ended up taking almost an hour. But you know, that's it is what it is. Sometimes Gem has hiccups, and I thought that the judges did a great job of keeping the event together, letting us know that there was delays, and giving us like be back at this time rather than us just sitting there and being in the dark. So it's unfortunate, but these things happened, and I felt like they handled it about as well as they could have given the circumstances.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. The one critique would probably be I just wish they had a lot of players meeting just to make sure that people got dropped properly. And I was just like, it's okay if people have buys, just start the rounds and get this tournament going. It's just that's what I thought. That's how I felt. Where like people that are dropping without clicking the drop button, they're probably X and 4, X and 5, like in the mid stage of the tournament. If those people get a buy, it's not that big of a deal, is what I thought. I do understand that in the limited portion, if there's like a person that dropped and there was like a pot of 7 or something, it's like multiple people gets multiple buys throughout that draft. But I thought like, it's not gonna hurt the integrity of the tournament enough that you have to waste another half an hour to get a players meeting done.
Yeah, that's fair. That did end up adding quite a bit to it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's what they normally do. Like, I don't know if that's part of the standard procedure now, or they decided to do it, but it did kind of make it
A little bit
a
longer.
little bit lengthy for sure. Yeah.
Okay. I guess anything you want to talk about the games in general, or like anything notable? I guess we should just talk about how we did in each portion of Nats.
Yeah, we can kind of go portion by portion and give our update. So, for anybody not familiar, our NAT structure was the same as I think most of them. So most of the ones that have like I think around like 100 players have this format where you have 3 CC, 3 draft, and then 3 more drafts. So 2 separate draft pods on day one. And then day two is 3 more rounds of CC and a cut to top eight. So it's a total of 12 rounds. I think we had 112 players, somewhere right around that. And the record that you needed to top eight was you needed to be X and 3 or higher. Starting with CC, I guess I can start. I went 2-1 in CC. Actually, sorry, no, that's not true. I went 3-0 in CC in day one. I played Aaron Shantz on feature match round one in a Lexi versus Dromai game. It was actually quite a good game, very back and forth. He did end up resolving Tomeltai. Did he get my New Horizons? He might have even gotten my New Horizons, but it was very late in the game, so it didn't end up mattering. It was
It's also on coverage too, right?
Yeah, it's also on coverage, so you can definitely go check that out. That was the first round. It was a pretty good game though.
Where is the coverage at?
It's on Red Riot Games YouTube channel, and it was produced by Mansant. So I don't think it is on Savage Feats, but it is on Red Riot Games YouTube channel, and we can put a link to that in the description if people want to check it out. I would highly encourage you to. There was a lot of really good games, and the coverage was like very, very well produced. I think that Mansent did a better job for our coverage than U.S. Nationals got, for example.
Ooh, hot take. I didn't watch the coverage yet, so I have no idea.
So not to say U.S. Nationals wasn't great. Like I thought the casters did a good job, but like the lighting and stuff was all just like really good from what I saw. I haven't watched everything, but I've kind of skimmed, and it looked great from what I saw. After that, I don't even remember what I played against. You know that I played some games of Flesh and Blood. They went my way, and that was kind of that. I felt like I just felt like on day one, my rounds went really clean. My deck was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. I didn't have any like surprising matchups. I know I wasn't playing the Lexi Mirror. Oh, I played a local on Bravo. Um, he ended up kind of falling a little bit behind, resolving a showtime, and I had like a really big turn following up, and he was just too far behind to catch up. And then at a third round, it'll come back to me, but regardless, like overall day one, I didn't have any super close matches besides the one with Aaron Chance, which is on coverage and worth checking out if you're interested in that matchup. It might still be relevant going into our next meta even, so we'll see.
That's fair. So I went 1-2 on day one on CC. I played Lexi. I played the exact list that Yuki posted on YouTube. I actually made this decision to play Lexi on Friday at 2 a.m. or something, and my flight was at 4 a.m. Ended up like messaging people on Discord and trying to pick up all the cards. And I ended up actually finding every single card I needed for the deck the day before, essentially. And I ran the deck cold. Zero playtest with this version of Lexi. I've played like maybe one or two games of old Lexi like a year ago, but basically cold. And then on my first round, I play against this Bravo that like kept on dominating Starstruck, and I was like, how does Lexi ever win against Starstruck? I ended up like multiple turns where I had like 2 cards in arsenal, 4 cards in hand, and I'm like, block for 3, take 7, pass, draw 1, and then like a couple turns later, I'm like, well, block for 3, take 7, I pass, draw 1, and yeah, he ended up with like 20 life, and I died. Ended up winning my second match. Don't remember what I played against, and then in the third match, this is like probably a little bit of like me going into this deck cold, but I'm playing the mirror, and I three of a kind draw into triple non arrows. I draw Codex, Frostbite, and I activate my quiver and reveal Command and Conquer. And I was like slightly ahead. Like I had tempo. We're both equal in life total, but the moment I did that, I was like, well, I guess I pitched 6 into double quiver, revealed Command and Conquer. I have nothing anymore. I Arsenal Codex, pass. And then he came at me with three of a kind, and then I basically died. Like I couldn't come back after that. So that was my CC round. Not a good start. 1-2, but my drafts went okay. I guess I'll start with my drafts. My day one draft, just tell you the record for both the drafts together. I went 5-1. I only dropped one game of my second draft. My first draft, I did the exactly what I said on the podcast. No pivot, no scout prism. I had a good prism deck, and I don't even know how to explain it. I just like edged people out by like a couple damage, and then kept that lead throughout the game. All of them was like they were all kind of close, but all of them I was like it was all under control. And then on my second draft, I was doing no pivot, no scout prism, and then in pack 2, I ended up opening what is that card called? V of the Vanguard?
Yeah, via the Vanguard.
Yeah, I ended up opening V of the Vanguard, and I'm like, well, I hate draft this because I can't beat this card. And then the pack 2, pick 2, I get past. The first card I see is V of the Vanguard. And I'm like, well, I'm still not passing this card. But then my pool that I know so far is like I have like 4 like cards in my pool and like 4 generics. And at this point I'm just like, I'm definitely cutting this V. But is this a signal for me to move into Bolton? And I decided to go with my gut and move into Bolton, and ended up with like a double V spill blood Bolton deck. It was kind of insane, but that was not good enough against the prism that I was passing to. He ended up with like multiple red heralds, and he went like Herald of Protection red, and I'm like, well, I can't block this out. Spears of Rally red into like Herald of Ravages red, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm losing this game because I have no poppers.
Yeah, Prism can be pretty scary if they have like the good red heralds and you don't have the poppers to deal with it. It can be just a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and that game was still kind of close because double V of the Vanguard's kind of insane. But yeah, it wasn't enough to close the game. So ended up 5-1 limited. My final record for the day was 6-3. So honestly, an okay place to start for day one.
Yeah. How are you feeling about things like let's say like at the end of CC and then after the drafts happen? How are you like where are you mentally? How are you feeling about the event?
Mentally, I was feeling actually kind of great. I was super disappointed in my one loss in draft. My CC games, as I said, like I felt like I kind of ran into variance there with like the Bravo matchup and the Lexi mirror, where I just drew no arrows with three of a kind. I'm kind of okay losing to variance myself. Like, I play a lot of poker. I just understand like variance is a thing that can happen. I think I played all my games pretty good. Like, I know there's nothing that I would change in my plays. Obviously, there may have been like one or two plays here and there that I could have changed, but overall, I'm happy with how I played. Just the limited game against Prism, maybe I could have like overblock the Herald and try and like set up my like block with my first V and then try and set up a second V later in the game when maybe the Prism has an off turn or something like that. And I was more kind of disappointed I didn't 6-0 limited than losing the constructor.
Yeah, that's fair. There's definitely games where there's not much you can do. I have one of those later that I'll mention in day 2. And yeah, I know that sometimes people get tilted or whatever, and I get that response, but also just focus on what you can control, and sometimes there's just not much that can be done. Like we're playing a card game, and you're not going to win every game, no matter how good you are. Like sometimes it just doesn't matter. It's not even to say that like even if you didn't play perfectly, like sometimes even the mistakes that you made aren't enough to change the result of that game.
Yeah. One last thing is I'm X and 3. I'm still live for top 8. So, I'm going to go into day 2. I'm very live for top 24, so going into day 2, my mentality was I'm going to 3-0 constructed tomorrow.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So going into draft, I'm 3-0 in CC. I'm feeling good, obviously, like about like as good as it can be. Everything's going well for me. I'm basically hoping for at least a 4-2 overall in draft, because that would leave me at X and 2, which is a very good record. And if I could get a 5-1 in draft, I would be thrilled. 3-3, I would still be live, just like Jay, but hoping to do better than 3-3. My first draft, I end up drafting Bolton. This is actually on coverage. It's played between the first and the second draft. So you can check that out if you want. We'll put a timestamp to it as well. And I think we might do a piece of like a short standalone video where we review those draft picks. I know it's moving out of Monarch draft season, but I think that there's some interesting things in that draft. In particular, I don't start Bolton and stay Bolton. I kind of stay open for a while and navigate into Bolton and end up getting rewarded by getting in pack 2 getting past a V of the Vanguard into a Spillblood and having overall a pretty strong Bolton deck. It's maybe not quite a 10 out of a 10 since some of my charge cards are a little bit weak and I only have I think I have 2 yellow take flights and no reds. So the deck's not perfect, but it is quite good and I'm quite happy with it and how I navigated that draft. I end up winning my first round. Don't remember. I play against Ian, our local Ian Smith, made finals of Nats last year. He was on Prism. Pretty close back and forth game. I end up having a big Spillblood turn where I get to go Spillblood, Axe for 4 dominate, Axe for 5 dominate, give it go again both times, and then pop Blood Drop to come in with Tremors for 6. So it's like a 15 damage turn with a bunch of dominate off of 3 cards, which kind of like put me into a spot where he had to block. And then I basically was just fishing until I got a good V turn. And I ended up actually taking a route on my last turn where I triple charged my Via the Vanguard, even though it was more damage technically to double charge, because I knew that triple charge was enough for lethal and he had been sitting on his arsenal for a long time. And I felt like it was a yellow blinding beam because it had just been sitting there. And I think I had like these like adrenaline rush turns where I gave adrenaline rush go again, but adrenaline rush gets +3, so he can't actually blinding beam it. So I'm like, I feel like that card is yellow blinding beam. I'm supposed to do less damage to not lose to yellow blinding beam. And that's the
Wow.
line I took. And he's like, I had yellow blinding beam in Arsenal.
You're so sick. That's actually so sick because I've heard from Ian's side of the story too, and he was basically saying the same thing of like Yuki just played around yellow blinding beam on the last turn of the game, and I just died because of it.
Yeah, I was just sitting there tanking and I forget the life totals, but I was just like, if I triple charge, I get V for 6, Axe for 5, Axe for 6, and like the Bolton stuff is online. And I forget what his life total was, but I think he was at like 3 or something. And I'm just like, there's no way that he can survive this. Like there's just no way. Or maybe it's at 4, but there was just no way he could survive. That was an exciting game. Felt good to get the hard read on the blinding beam there. My second round, I play against Chain. My deck kind of gets me into trouble. I don't draw the good cards in my deck, and I don't draw good charge cards. And then he just like has like a double belittle minnowism turn, attacks me for 15 on Shackle 3 or something like that. And I basically have to decide to try and fatigue him at this point. I'm still at 19, and there's no way I can race. So I got forced into blocking, and his deck is just very, very good. He played very well. I don't think I ever win this game. I lost a life somewhere. I blocked 3 on a 4 when I could have blocked with 2 blocks. He overkilled me by like, I don't know, a bunch of damage, and he still like had more banishes left. Like it didn't matter. The one life wasn't making the difference. So yeah, sometimes you lose. And then my finals was a Bolton Mirror, and that one is also on coverage and kind of played out sort of similarly to my game against Ian, where I have a big Spellblood turn that gets them low. They have to block my charge cards, and I keep making them block until I can finish them off with V, which was kind of exactly what my deck wanted to do. I end the draft 2-1. I'm at X and 1, feeling pretty good. Next draft, I have a really awkward draft, actually. I kind of start out in Chain, but Chain and Prism are hard cut. Like I'm seeing no Chain or Prism cards by pick like 4 or 5. So I clearly can't go Chain. And I'm seeing like one blue or yellow Bolton card per pack. And then I'm seeing not like Dread Screamers or anything, but I'm seeing like red 6 powers and Levia. I'm seeing like, what's that word? What's that card called? Unworldly Bellow, like red Unworldly Bellow, the 1 for 4. Pretty like decent Levia cards. And I'm like, I don't like getting into Levia for these cards, but like I'm not going to pick up like the blue and yellow Bolton charge cards when it feels like somebody is drafting Bolton. And I'm obviously not going into Chain or Prism. So I kind of get like forced into it. And then the person passing to me ends up pivoting into Levia as well around like pick 8 or 9. And so we have 3 Levias in the pod. Tarek is also on Levia, and I end up playing him in the mirror, and we just kind of laughed because at the start of the game he goes, "We got to stop meeting like this," because last Can Nats in our second draft we were 3 Dromides, and we ended up playing each other I think on the first round, and again our decks were just like awful, truly terrible, and we just had like the saddest game of like attacking each other back and forth. It was very funny. I ended up getting there because I have more. Basically, my draft's going really poorly, and I realize that Levia's cut. So I'm not drafting some of the cards you might want to draft, like yellow Dread Screamers and stuff like that, because I'm like, I don't have enough 6s for this yellow Dread Screamer. This card doesn't do anything. I just need to draft the 6s, or my like. Then I have like a somewhat functional deck. So I just had more 6s than Tarek did. And I was pulling ahead in terms of fatigue math, and he ended up having to try and banish. But the problem is he has like 6 out of 20 cards are 6 powers, and he ends up, he goes for it, and then he ends up dying to Blood Deck because he can't keep banishing 6s, obviously. So I end up kind of like getting rewarded there. I lost my first round to a Prism. Game was like kind of close. My deck came up in like a really awkward order. And then my last round of draft, I play against Michael Jazaker on Prism. And I'm pretty nervous. It's like a 3 Prism pod, so it's not going to be an insane Prism deck, but still like my Levia deck's pretty bad. That being said, I do have a win condition. I have multiple pound for a pounds. I think I have like 2 reds and a yellow. And I also have 3 convulsions from the Bellows of Hell. So I can do a whole bunch of dominate damage. And that's sort of like my win condition in this deck. It's a little bit tricky because I don't have the 6s to really pull it off. And I end up missing a convulsions in the mid game. But Jazaker is basically trying to fatigue me. I set up on the very last turn a 14 dominate with red Unworldly Bellow, red Convulsions into a yellow Deadwood Rumbler. This is like my third cycle, my last 4 cards in deck. I come in with 14 Dominate. He's at 13. I get exact lethal, which I was very excited about. I think the funny thing is that on this turn, I was at 5. So I was like, please don't attack me for 5. I end up getting attacked for 4 by a yellow impenetrable belief pitching a blinding beam. And the irony of the situation is that if he kept those cards, I could never kill him because he would have the blinding beam and the 4 block and he would have lived. You know, a very long day. I think we had been there for like 12 hours. He kind of overlooked it and I ended up squeezing out a win. And I felt very pleased to walk away with a 2-1 out of that draft because I felt pretty bad about my deck after I drafted it. I was like, I hope this is not an 0-3 draft. So I don't know. I wanted to talk about that. I've been hearing a lot of discourse on Twitter about bad drafts and people cutting you and, you know, people moving in, and it happens. I do feel like there was no way I couldn't be Levia in this draft, and it was unfortunate. But that doesn't mean you can't still 2-1. Like, other people's decks suck too. You can get creative in your gameplay. You can make decisions in your draft to try and make the most of your bad cards. And sometimes you get, you know, not a 3-0 draft deck, but you can get some wins, and that can be a big difference maker.
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on that topic a little bit more too. What did you think about the Monarch draft format? Like, I know a lot of people, even in our local community, didn't really like Monarch as a competitive format. What about you? Did you like this format or did you not like it?
I think I'll start by saying it is probably my least favorite competitive draft format that we've had in Flesh and Blood, that I've had to play at least. So not commenting on WTR or ARC because I didn't really play those competitively. But that's mostly because I find the gameplay a little bit swingy. Like, almost all the decks are able to do just like 20, like 15, 20 damage turns, which feel like you can just get run over even if you have a good deck. And some of the decks, especially Chain and Levia, and to a lesser degree Bolton, have a little bit of variance in the gameplay too. Just like the Shadow Heroes banishing and Bolton kind of being reliant on take flights. And sometimes you just, all your take flights are like the bottom 2 hands of your deck and it feels really bad. So that's like my biggest critique of the format. But overall, I still think it is a good draft format, and I'm happy that it was part of Nationals. So I think I am much higher on the format than most people. I think it is still skill testing, still fun, still worth including. I just like other formats a little bit more because they're a little bit more stable.
That's super fair.
What about you?
I actually really enjoyed the Monarch draft format. Yes, I hate losing to Levias that just like randomly presents like 20 some plus damage at you for no reason. But I think the moment I start accepting that not belittle, Brandish Yellow was like a card that I was like, oh my god, I got Yellow Brandish pick 7. This is like insane. I think at that point, when I started like having those kinds of feelings, I was very happy with this draft format. Everything I was like, every card I was picking was like, I need this card for this exact matchup in these spots, so I have to pick this card. And I'll be like, oh, this yellow blinding beam or this what's some random 2 power like blue adrenaline rush. Like, which card is better in my Prism deck? And it's just like having to make that decision without looking at your picks and like trying to like sculpt this like perfect Prism deck to beat the table is like was like what really like I had a lot of enjoyment doing. I feel like after I got past that portion of like how do I draft the best versions of each deck, and then I started focusing on like how do I perfect this like really cringy Prism deck, I really started to enjoy the format a lot more. Being like, this blue spectral, is it spectral shield? The make
Prismatic Shield?
prismatic shield. It's like blue prismatic shield. This card is really insane because that is my one out against Levia, and then like I need to like arsenal it, play it on the spot that then they can't pop it, so then you can now attack for 4 every other turn. It's just like, and then like, do I have enough cards like impenetrable belief where I can block out for 4 and 8 when I needed to, or combine it with my 2 blocks to block for 6, so then I can have 2 blocks in my deck against Avaya. It's just like those like very small edges I feel like was really rewarding in this format. After you got to the point, where you're just like, wow, I lost to a chain deck that banished like 3 red blood red cards in his first 2 shackles, and you still just died to that, but nothing you can do about that, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I think one of the things that I like about Monarch Draft, and I think one of the biggest strengths of the format, is that it is fairly like, I don't know if this is the right word, but I want to say like synergy focused, or like the cards are like kind of contextual, and a lot of the cards have a purpose. There are some truly bad cards, like I don't think you really want to play Memorial Grounds or
Oh
Rise
man,
Above.
I came with peace with Memorial Grounds. The card that's still awful is Rise Above.
Yeah,
Oh.
Memorial Grounds has its spots. It's okay, but yeah, it's also not fantastic. But anyways, all that's to say, like I like that there's like these different archetypes for the heroes, and that they can look differently. Like for example, as much as I hated my Leviathan deck, and I would hope to not have to play a deck like that in a competitive setting, it was kind of cool to have this puzzle of like I got past 3 red convulsions from the Bellows of Hell in a row in pack 2 when my deck didn't really have a win condition, and this is going to be my win condition. And then I'm going to prioritize some red pound for a pounds, which are just sixes anyways, and I'm going to have this like hope I can just get people to take a bit of damage and then kill them with a bunch of dominate. And I think that that's just like one example, but I think that the fact that the decks can look different is really cool. I think that like chain, having to think about, am I like the first cycle belittle minnowism brandish chain? Am I the like rip through reality pitch stack chain, or am I like the riftbind pitch stack chain, or some combination of them? I think all of that is really cool, and like one of the parts that I really do like about Monarch, despite overall not liking it for competitive play as much as some of the other sets.
Yeah, just Monarch is a high rolly format in general. So no matter how broken your deck is, you just get high rolled out of it, and that just feels kind of bad as a best of one game. I feel like if Monarch was a best of three format, this would have even been like it would have been like a very acceptable format actually.
You know, I think I kind of agree with that. I think it's mostly just like the random losses where you're like, my deck's real good, but it just didn't matter. Like, I don't know, you're playing Chain, you have an insane Chain deck, you draw nothing but red blood debt and banish your blues. And it's just like, okay, like, sure. Like things like that just happen. And those parts of the format feel a little bit bad. But yeah, overall, I think the format's a lot better than people give it credit for. I do think it's a hard format, though. I think it's one of the most.
It's the most punishing format for sure. You make like
Yeah,
five wrong picks and you're just like you're not in contention for top like the 3-0 spot anymore.
yeah, and I think the gameplay is really tight too. Especially the shadow heroes are really, really tough to play. Even Bolton's a little bit tricky. I think Prism's like maybe the most intuitive, but even then, there's stuff like understanding how important the spectrals are, especially in the mirror and Levia. The format just feels a little bit more involved to play than something like, let's say, Uprising, where I think Uprising was a relatively deep format, but if all you want to do is force Fi and hit people with Fi cards, like you could do that and have very good success, and it was pretty easy to execute. Whereas I feel like Monarch doesn't really have that.
Definitely agree. Okay, let's move on and talk about I guess a little bit of day two. I'll just start real quick because I don't have that much to say other than that I went 1-2, so it just I won my first round, lose my next two. I actually pop off. Well, not pop off is not the right word. I get really disappointed in myself on the second round of CC of day two. I'm playing against a Dromai. His name was Jamil Nicholas. He ended up making top 8 of this event. But on the very, very last turn of the game, I end up coming in with the blue sleep dart with a +1 off Voltaire. He blocked for 4 with a rake and a rabble. I activate Snapdragon Scalers to give it go again. Did I play Rain? Oh, and then I played Rain Razors to push in for 2 damage, put him down to 4. And then I play Codex of Frailty, bringing back a Heat Seeker and using my last resource to attack for 7. What I messed up here, I was so mad at myself because I made a mistake here. My opponent was on Dromine. He had burned them off face up, and he's banished almost every single card in the graveyard. So he just has like 2 dragons in his graveyard. And when I played Codex, he shows me his graveyard, and he's like, "I only have dragons here," and I'm like, "Okay, that's fair." So you don't discard. and I attack for 7 with Heat Seeker, ends up blocking for 6, only leaks 1, and I end up losing the game to the Burn the Ball because I was at 1 life. So through this story, if you've recognized, he's blocked with Ravenous Rabble on my first Sleep Dart, and then I played my Codex of Frailty. If I was just a little bit more diligent and moved all the cards that was on the current combat chain to the graveyard how it's supposed to go, then we would have known that there should have been a Ravenous Rabble in the graveyard, which then he has to put into Arsenal and he has to discard a card. Then the Heat Seeker attacking for 7 while he's at 4, he blocks for 3 and he actually takes lethal damage, and I actually win that game. And that would have been huge because then that means I would have been X and 3 going into the last round, and I would have had a win it in, which I maybe would have won, maybe would have lost. I don't know. Maybe I just get edged out by better players. But I was very disappointed in myself for basically missing an onboard lethal. Like I played that turn as perfectly as I can, and if I were just like a little bit, either if I had a little bit more reps or if I were just more conscious about playing a little bit more cleanly, I would have won that game. I was like so disappointed in myself. It took me like a good 25 minutes or so for me to like calm back down and like make sure that I was like okay to play my next round.
Yeah, I remember seeing you outside and you were pretty distraught, which is fair. It's always, I think those losses where you feel like you can't do anything are always harder to handle, at least for me, than the losses where you're like, yeah, there was no way I win.
Yeah, it's like it was an onboard lethal, right? Like all I had to do was be like move the cards to the graveyard, attack you with Heat Seeker. You have to discard a card from the Codex, like it's just like these are all like things that should happen, and I just like it's like a missed pummel trigger. It's like it should have happened, but I missed it. Like it's like I don't even know why I missed it, how I missed it. Maybe I just wasn't thinking clearly. I don't know, but like I think these kinds of situations, like I really beat myself up for it. And I think it's like if I don't beat myself up for it, I'm gonna make the same mistakes sometime in the future, and I'm not gonna let myself do that. So yeah, you know what? Like me not top aiding this event, completely my own fault because like I missed this. Like I missed the win. It's so disappointing. Ah.
I definitely get that, and it definitely as it feels bad. So it's too bad that that happened, but you know, it does happen. So my day 2, I'm going in at X and 2. I need 2 wins, and then I should be locked for top 8. So I'm actually feeling really good about my spot, feeling quite confident. I win my first round against Adromai. They have a very good start. I think they open with Nourishing on the play, Nourishing Emptiness, making 2 Ash, which is like one of the more crazy starts that they can have. But I get to load because it's Dominate and he has no action point, and then I draw into like a Rain Razor's 3 of a kind turn. Then I have another Rain Razor's 3 of a kind turn, and he's just like the 5 cards don't matter at that point. He's just kind of buried. So still X and 2 going into round 10. I have a win in, and if I lose that one, I still have another win in. I end up playing against Sean Dollywall. I've played him a number of times. I played him in finals of 2021 Canadian Nats, and I also played him in top 8 or 4, top 8 of Calling Vegas. So very strong player. He was on Dromai, and this was one of those games where there's nothing you can do. He won the die roll, went second, played Yendrai into Command and Conquer. So I have to block 6. I actually have a pretty good turn lined up. I think I would have like double premeditate with 3 arrows presenting like 20 damage and 2 blood rots if he didn't Command and Conquer me, but he
That's
does.
gross.
Yeah, because I ended up getting like a double arsenal. Anyways, he CNCs me. I have to block. I think I end up coming in with Bolt and Shot for 10, which is like still pretty solid. He blocks with Crown something away. He's on 0 Ash, and he just goes, yeah, okay. My turn, Rabble, flip a red. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. He pitches to Furnace, gets a resource and an Ash, plays Tomeltai. He already knows he has 1 red on the top, so he flips the other card, which is also a red, and blows up my New Horizon. And this is like the second turn of the game after I just got CNC'd. And presenting 10 damage to try and punish his Tomeltai is not nearly enough to make the game close. He's at 32, and I lose my double arsenal that I had, and there's just I kind of set up towards like a double Rain Razor's turn where like if he blocks wrong, I can get four arrows with Bolt and Shot and Endless, but he has a D-React, he plays around it well, just make sure that he can't lose. And there's really not much that I can do. So yeah, that, those games happen, and try to just like reset and focus up for the next game, which is also a win in. In this one, I play against Isaac Crute, who actually went on to win the whole event. I also played him in top 4 of 2021 Canadian Nats, and I believe he's like top 8 Pro Tour in New Jersey. So Isaac Crute, very accomplished player, very strong player, and he's on Lexi. This game was actually like the closest game, the one that I felt like I had the most agency in. The draft games, I kind of like, no way I could beat the chain. And when I played Levia, like my deck just kind of sucked, and getting 2-1 was about as good as I could hope for. Against Sean, I got Tumultide, like there wasn't much I could do, but the game against Isaac, actually very close. I think I make a couple key mistakes. I have a spot where I'm attacking, I end up blocking I believe it's a Command and Conquer again that I have to block. And I Tunic, Endless Arrow. He doesn't block the Endless Arrow. And I end up getting a little bit greedy here. I end up trying to play Rain Razors on it. And basically, I would Rain Razors, Endless would come back to hand. I get to attack with another Endless Arrow in Arsenal that he has to block. And then I would get to Arsenal. So I'd have like 12 damage off of 2 cards in an Arsenal, which seems pretty good. The problem is, I don't realize that he doesn't have the exact same list as mine, but he's taken a lot of the things that were in my list, and he actually has Tar Pit Trap. So he just Tar Pit Traps my Endless Arrow. And then I'm like, well, I've committed my Rain Razors. If I had not committed, I could have just Arsenaled it and had like Endless Arrow, Rain Razors, and Arsenal and been in a good spot. But instead, I committed it. I'm kind of priced into attacking with my Endless. He just blocks out, and then I'm like kind of just like out a lot of value. So that was a bit of a blowout. And then there's another turn where he just manages to Command and Conquer me when I have like a very good Rain Razor's turn set up. Not much to be done. I eat like a hamstring shot for 8, and then he has Command and Conquer. I'm just like, well, that's unfortunate. So yeah, I think overall he played well. There was maybe a spot where I could have chosen. I read that he had a Tar Pit Trap later on a double Rain turn, because he had blocked for 3 on a Bolton shot that was coming in for 4. I think expecting the Rain Razors, but I ended up going double Rain Razors. He tanked for a bit, didn't Tar Pit Trap, and I think my sequence was Infecting Shot into Heat Seeker for 9 and 9. The problem was that he got to block clean. He got to get like a clean 9 block on my Infecting Shot, and then that also turned off the on hit for the Heat Seeker. I think realistically, the game was like we were pretty low. I should have given it +1 and forced him to block with his Tunic as well, and then snaps. I don't know if that would have been enough to get me there, but it would have made the game closer, and the end game was quite close. So yeah, some interesting spots. Not sure. I also codexed a CNC at one point and then couldn't spend my whole hand. Maybe if I codexed a 1-cost arrow, it would have been better. There was a lot of like close calls, but I think even looking at back at them, some of them are not like totally clear to me that they're wrong. Like I'm not sure if the Rain Razors on the Endless early on in the game was like wrong. Like it turned out really bad, and maybe it was better not playing it, but it's not like a glaring mistake. It's just like one of those ones where you're like, oh, I feel like I should have been able to win somehow, but I didn't quite get there. And there was like a couple smaller things. So I don't know. Overall, pretty happy with the event. I think Isaac played better than I did. I didn't really see any mistakes from his side as far as I could tell. He played really clean. I made a couple mistakes. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Was it? I'm not sure where I heard this from, but I think I've heard Isaac talking about how he added Tarpit Trap after like looking at your deck list.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. On Twitter, I had congratulated him. I saw them post there was like a team photo. Sean and some of the Sean, Chance, and Jaziker were holding Isaac up on their shoulders, kind of thing. It was a great photo. And I had just congratulated him, and I don't know if it was Tarpit Trap, but he said that he had looked at the Calling Vegas list and made some changes and felt like it helped improve his deck. So I don't know. I don't know if it was that specific card, but it did sound like he had taken some things from it. And certainly in the mirror, he had very similar cards. He has a couple of differences. Like I think he might have had Remorseless in the mirror, and he had like Blue Cold Snap, which I wasn't on. It didn't come into effect in our game, but he did have it in his deck. But he had a lot of the other tech cards like CNC and Tar Pit Trap.
I guess, yeah, so that's our whole event. You came in 9th, I came 24th.
Yeah. Well,
Anything else you wanted to mention about the event before we wrap it up for today?
I don't really think so. I think that that is kind of most of it. I guess shout out to Isaac Crute. Congratulations on taking down the whole event. Very strong player, works very hard, and very deserving of that win. So I was glad to see him go on to win. You know, us BC folks really dropped the ball this time. We had a number of people who were like kind of close to top eighting. Like I think Lucas and I both lost a win and in, but we put nobody into top eight, and the Ontario people had a whole bunch. I think like the Harry Tarantula crew, there was Sean, Isaac, Jazzaker, and Chance. So four of them in the top eight. So they had a really good showing. Congratulations to them. And we're going to have to see if we can give them a run for their money next Canadian Nationals.
Oh yeah. I need to improve my limited game so I can go 6-0. I give up on my constructed game. It's fine.
Yeah, clearly the play for Jay here is to try and improve limited, which he's already very good at from a 5-1 into a 6-0, not to try and do better at the CC portion where he audibled to a deck last minute, went 2-4 and made some mistakes with onboard lethal because he didn't practice.
I don't want to practice CC. That's overrated.
Yeah. I think we might all be in trouble if Jay ever cared enough to practice constructed, but as it is, he's willing to just kind of pick up a deck, hope for the best, and rely on his draft and see how far he gets. But yeah, if Jay ever ends up grinding CC, people better look out. I think he might be pretty scary.
If I ever do.
If you ever do.
Look, I was like last year in Nats. I ended up dropping from top eight just to go play Team Sealed. So that tells you how much I like CC.
That's fair. And at the end of the day, like I think people got to remember you're playing these games for fun. So do what you enjoy. And I think that just extends to competitive players as well as more casual players. I think, you know, everybody should be aiming to have fun with the game and whatever that looks like. So I like that you're doing that and you're not afraid of making decisions that maybe don't always make sense or register with some other people, but you have your own reasons that I think make a lot of sense and I admire.
Thank you? Question mark. Or you can be like Yuki and like just like win a bunch of events, have infinite PTIs. You're gonna go to Barcelona still, right?
Yeah. So quarter 4, actually kind of crazy. Going to calling Dallas Fort Worth, then Battlehard in Vancouver, which is local, and then Barcelona for Worlds. So it's going to be pretty jam packed. I'm traveling quite a bit. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do about recording the podcast. I think I should still be able to make it work, but I'm actually like on vacation in Dallas for a month or so. So I'm going to
Wow.
have to figure that out.
Yeah, bring a mic and we can talk about your calling Dallas Fort Worth and honestly more about Bright Lights because that's gonna come out very, very soon.
Yeah, super excited for that. And maybe this is a good time to mention. I'm sure I'll make some posts and stuff, but I do indeed have a spoiler card, I believe. It's pretty funny because this round of emails for the spoiler card, they tried to like lean into the whole like metrics thing, and it's like sent by like marketing bot and stuff. So like that's like the way that it's written. And I was like, when I first read it, I'm like, is this a phishing email? Like this feels like a phishing email. And I had to like check the email address to make sure it was the right one, and it was. But anyways, that was just like the first thing that came to mind. And I thought it was pretty funny. But anyways, supposedly we have a spoiler. I don't know what it is. I haven't looked at it yet, but I've been told that we've been invited to participate. Excited for that and honored as always. We'll let you know where to find that, but I do think it will be part of September 22nd, which is the official card reveal window. So nothing early or beforehand. It will just be during the regular card reveal period. And keep your eyes out for that. I'm sure it'll be going up on our channel or something like that. Or, you know, if you don't see it, then maybe it was a phishing email and I just got tricked. Who knows?
That would be so much funnier than if it was an actual spoiler card.
It would be very, very funny, especially because I intentionally went out of the way to check. And but I don't know. Who knows? I've messed up stupid things before, so it wouldn't be my first time.
Okay. Okay. I think we can wrap it up for today then.
Yeah. So, as always, thanks for listening. We appreciate all of our listeners and hearing from all of you. So, if you have any comments, if you want to tell us about your Nationals run or any experiences that you had during the National season, we'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. You can reach out to us online as well. I'm at Yuki Lee Bender on Twitter. Jay is at Ueda J. And we have an email on thebobble@gmail.com where you can send us questions and feedback directly if you'd rather do that than one of those other avenues that we discussed. That's pretty much going to wrap us up for today. Enjoy the downtime. Enjoy having a little bit of in between time where there's not so much in the way of competitive events before we gear up into Bright Lights, brand new draft set. I think we're both pretty excited for it. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, and well, I guess the ProQuest is coming up soon. It's like October.
That's true. ProQuest. I think that there's some limited ProQuest too, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to trying to get some draft content together for that, and maybe even sealed content. I know that there's like a sealed calling for Barcelona. Sealed format might be pretty sweet for this set. You get like 4 packs, but all your cards are playable. I guess unless you get like an expansion card, but that's like 1 in 15 packs, so it'll be
I
like
think it
one card.
replaces a token slot.
Oh, does it? Okay, then you'll have you always have the full 56 cards. It should be pretty just like numbers wise, 56 cards, you cut to, let's say, a 30 card deck and you have some equipment, you're making a lot of cuts. Like you're making a lot of decisions compared to a lot of sealed formats where, like, realistically, you're cutting maybe like 4 or 5 cards from your pool kind of thing. I think it's going to be pretty skill testing, actually, the sealed format, figuring out which hero you're supposed to be, which cards you're playing, which ones you're cutting, how you sideboard for different matchups. Like, I think that's going to hopefully be a thing more than it's been, because it hasn't really been that big of a thing in sealed so far.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm also excited for the bright lights. Just like they also have these equipments that are they don't actually do anything. Sorry. I thought there was going to be 4 equipments you get to start with. It is true that you do get 4 equipments that you get to start with, but they don't do anything. They're just mech equipment, base head, base chest, base arms, base legs. They don't have block values. I thought they had block values.
Yeah, I think they're just there so you can like play your evos onto them, and you don't have to have the pain of drafting an evo deck and being like, no, I got no base equipments.
Okay. Okay. Actually, I guess while we're on the topic, there's a new spoiler that literally just came out. It's the new hero. It's Dash.
What?
Dash database. So this is a young hero. We don't know if there's gonna be an adult version of this, but its ability is I'll start with its intellect. It's 4 intellect with 18 health, and its ability is you may look at the top card of your deck at any time. Once per turn, you may play a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from top of your deck as though it was an instant. It costs an additional resource to play.
What?
Yep.
This looks insane.
This is you are a 5-hander some of the time.
This seems really strong to me.
You can't miss on boost anymore with this card, so you can actually play a not all mech boost deck if you really wanted to.
BIOS update with this hero seems ridiculous.
Yeah. And you can play like Sync Belows and Fate Foreseens, and like you can actually just like play a different type of dash with this card if it is an adult hero. Dash and Blitz is, unfortunately not explosive enough to be insane, but in CC, if this is an adult hero, I'm kind of excited.
I guess that's fair. We don't know if it's an adult hero. This is only the young one. Wow, this looks really sweet. I think that this might be really fun and limited too, and the art is awesome. I really like the art in this one, actually.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
If this is a hero in CC, I don't know. This set's seeming really sweet. I don't know if anything's going to be strong enough to deal with Lexi or not, but I could see myself playing some mech, certainly once Lexi rotates, and probably exploring it regardless.
I don't know if you're a dash and you go like Fate Foreseen, pitch a blue, play a D react, and then play some item off the top of your deck. kind of feels broken.
Does seem really good. It's interesting, right? Because I guess like the trade off is there's that pistol plan that you could play before, and because like it does seem like this dash wants to be item focused, and you got to start with an item in play, which is already kind of like 2 cards worth of value. And you get the benefit of that item right away, which is all pretty big. But there might be some more like deck building considerations for this hero that open up from it. And like we mentioned, BIOS update just seems amazing. Like I could imagine that being a card that you just arsenal and wait until you get something sweet on the top of your deck.
Yeah, did BIOS update have to hit?
No, I think it's just the next card you boost. If it's an item, it goes into play. Let's double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what it does.
Okay.
Yeah, the next time a mechanologist item with cost 2 or less is banished to play a boost card this turn, put it into the arena, and it gives your next. So it doesn't even have to be. It doesn't have to be on top, like the exactly on top of your deck, but obviously Dash only gives you information about the first card on top of your deck.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's also cards like Optical Monocle, that's a 0 cost item that lets you opt one on demand. There's Convection Amplifier that gives your next attack Dominate. There's cards like Teklo Core, which will be a big one, where you'll be able to generate 2 resources, and that could help you play more items. And honestly, if you play like, if you put like 3 Teklo Cores on top of your deck somehow, you can just go like, you know, pitch a blue, play Teklo Core, Teklo Core, Teklo Core, and
no, it's once per turn. Once per turn.
oh, is it once per turn? Oh, it's only once per turn. Never mind.
I kind of wonder. It's tough. Teklo Foundry Heart is like an incredible chess piece, but I almost wonder if you could ever play Tunic, because being able to like Tunic play Teklo Core seems real good. But maybe because it's an instant, it doesn't matter. Like you can just spend 1 resource on your turn and that's good enough, and you just rather have Foundry Heart. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how much playing it at instant speed it really actually matters. And the more that matters, the better this card gets.
Yeah, I guess if you have items that, oh, that's interesting. It's cost 1 or 0 from the top of your
You
deck. So it doesn't
cannot
even
play.
work with the pistols.
Yeah, you can't play
So
induction chambers. You can't play the broken items.
yeah, I feel like we're going to see some new 1 and 0 cost items for this dash. I'll be really curious to see what this hero's game plan is. I'm kind of excited. I Mechanologist is like one of the classes I wanted to like early on, and I think that like somehow like the pistol game plan and the boost game plan never quite spoke to me. Like I feel like all the other items are like so cool. They're just kind of bad. But yeah, I'm kind of excited for this. Maybe you can play maybe you can play Nitro Mechanoid Dash finally.
Oh, you can play hyperdrivers off the top. Yo.
I don't know if that's better than actually just starting with a hyperdriver and play. The more that I think about it, the more it probably isn't.
Wait,
But
but you just
it's
need
fun to
you
think
still
about.
need 3 hyperdrivers on board.
Yeah, you still need 3 hyperdrivers, which means that you need to play 3 of them and you still need to pitch for them. So like it probably doesn't actually help, but it's kind of fun.
It's kind of cool.
I guess it's kind of like a 1 card hyperdriver because it's just the card that you pitch for it, and then the hyperdriver comes off the top. So rather than spending 2 cards for each hyperdriver, you're spending 1 card. Also, like that you can like boost to dig towards your items without having to worry about banishing them. That's sweet.
Yeah, that is also very sweet. Or just like, I'm kind of excited because like now we get to play with like non-mech cards with your boost effects. It's just like, that's sweet.
I wonder if they'll ever have any like reveal. I don't know, stuff that cares about what's on top of your deck that Dash can take advantage of. Like besides boost, I wonder if you'll ever have like, I don't know where I'm going with this. Like Quiver of Rustling Leaves.
That would just be broken.
Well, like it doesn't have to be literally Quiver of Rustling Leaves, but I wonder if there'll be like those style of effects. I could see it being pretty cool. I think they could make it in a way that's potentially balanced if they cost it right and everything.
I think I'm just the one kind of hero I'm still waiting on is some kind of pitch stack based hero where the card just reads like, pay some resource and name the top card of your deck, and if you get it right, you get some kind of bonus.
It's the ultimate J deck. Just memorize his deck and get rewarded.
Yeah, so then, like, in pitch stack situations, you just go like pitch a resource, name the top card. I know it's this. Get some kind of benefit. If it's like gain a life, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does seem pretty interesting. I don't know if I like the idea of gain a life. I don't want to get fatigued by Jay for the rest of the time, but I'm sure they could do something there that would be fun.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good enough for a sign off.
Agreed. Good night, everyone, or have a good rest of your day, whatever time it is for you.
Yeah. Good night, everyone. Bye bye.